Now, I go way back with computers. I have a really unhealthy relationship with them. It's the only drug I take anymore is computers. In 1979, my dad brought an Apple II Plus home. It had a modem, and all of a sudden, I had access to communities and tools and ideas that even the most powerful, rich, and sophisticated grown-ups of a decade before could have dreamt of having. And every year, computers gave me more power, gave me more access to more tools, more communities, and more ideas. I see a lot of people in the audience tonight that I know through computers. I see people in the audience tonight whose lives have been changed by computers. I know that this is your story too. And every year, I felt like computers were bringing us closer to a kind of utopia where we would all have more agency than we dreamt of before. And then I started thinking about what computers were doing to kids today. And I realized that if you're a kid today, you have a lot more in common with the kids of my dad's generation, who wore little buttons that said, "I am a student, do not bend, spindle, fold, or mutilate me," and took the punch cards that represented their identities at the universities and burned them, and smashed computers because they saw them as tools for regimentation and control. People who predated the personal computer revolution and people who postdate the personal computer revolution were both justifiably suspicious of computers, because today, computers are being used to snitch on us, to spy on us, to control us, to do things, particularly to young people, that are a kind of beta test for what's going to be done to the rest of us. So, you know, universal wiretapping is now a fact of life thanks to the FISA bill and thanks to the senators on both sides who voted for it. Right? The Fourth Amendment has been suspended, but the Fourth Amendment has been suspended for young people for as long as there's been internet access in schools. Right? Schools have, for a decade now, paid scumbag companies like SmartFilter, which basically they hire boiler rooms full of blue noses to look at every page on the internet and say this one's good and this one's bad, and kids can look at this one and kids can't look at this one, and you know they make tons of mistakes. It's just completely ridiculous that this endeavor it's broken and will never succeed. They hire these companies that also provide the network filters for Syria and the United Emirates to filter our classrooms. Right? So kids know what it's like to live without the Fourth Amendment because they've been subject to bulk surveillance long before the NSA got it into their head to surveil the entire internet. Kids know what it's like to have their devices designed to track them because we're taking the bracelets that were designed to track felons and we're putting them on kids who are accused of truancy. Kids know what it's like to have their devices disobey them because their primary access to devices is through mobile phones and game consoles, which are designed to allow remote parties to delete software from them, set policy, and spy on their users without their users' knowledge or consent. So if I were a kid today, I'd be dead scared of computers, and I think that kids today are rightfully dead scared of computers. They know that they're being followed around the internet by marketing creeps. They know that they're being spied on by creeps who scare their parents with boogeyman stories about pedophiles and tell them that they need to let them spy on everything they do, who try to keep them from, we not only have chased children out of the public sphere, they're not allowed to gather on the street or in the parks because of the fear of the other. Now we tell them they also can't get on MySpace because of the fear of the other. We tell them they can't gather online because of the fear of the other. They're basically meant to sit quietly and make as little noise as possible until they're 18, and then we draft them, basically. So I wrote this book called Little Brother that was trying to convince kids that it didn't have to be this way, that they could take back control of their computers, that if they didn't own it, if they couldn't open it, they didn't own it. And once they could open it, they really did own it. That the difference between a utopia and a dystopia is about whether or not the computers control you or you control the computers. And it's been moderately successful. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. And I hope that we are on the verge of a new computer revolution that convinces a new generation that computers aren't there to spy on them, that computers aren't there to control them, that computers can give them more freedom than they ever had before, and that we can use that freedom to continue to organize different kinds of communities, to organize around our interests, to woo the muse of the odd, to be as weird as we want to be as interesting and experimental as we want to be, to pursue interesting kinds of art and interesting kinds of culture and interesting kinds of politics again. And thank you very much.